Hallo meine Freunde, willkommen zurück zu einer weiteren Folge von The Stanley. Und ich muss traurigerweise sagen, in der letzten Folge, wo die Frau sagte, ich soll das Spiel beenden, um zu entkommen, habe ich mehrere Varianten ausprobiert. Ich habe keine Ahnung, was ich richtig gemacht habe, weil sich nichts geändert hat bei mir. Weil nichts aufgeploppt ist oder so. Aber dafür gehen wir jetzt den neuen Weg.
Psst.
Genau da durch.
Stanley, come over here. In the vent.
Bin ich das schon?
I want to show you something.
Und was willst du mir zeigen? Diesen Kaffeebecher hier vielleicht? Oder was? Was? Okay.
Okay, you remember how cheap and unsatisfying the new Ultra Deluxe content turned out to be? Well, it got me thinking about the past and how much better the Stanley Parable used to be. So I made something special and tucked it away here where the game's developers won't find it. Just our little secret. Take a look.
Ich habe gerade ein bisschen Angst, um ehrlich zu sein. Kann ich hier nicht... Achso, ich dachte, ich soll hier durchgucken oder so. Was will er mir denn zeigen? Unser Geheimnis. Komme ich da oben auch irgendwie lang? Wo ist er auch im Weg? Meine ich. Cool. Wo sind wir hier? Und warum ist der Kopieren die Bürostudio einfach hier? Kann ich hier irgendwo... Gibt es hier irgendwo was Besonderes? Da ist eine Alpha-Wand. Okay, wir müssen auf jeden Fall...
I call it the Memory Zone. It's where I've been storing all my favorite memories so I can relive the peak experiences of my life whenever I want. Experiences like the launch of the Stanley Parable on PC.
Cool. Weißt du, wenn ich zurückgehe? Sagt ihr irgendwas? Nee, sagt nichts, okay. The Stanley Parable.
You see, Stanley, doesn't the Memory Zone remind you of how wonderful Stanley Parable was before it was sullied with a cheap re-release? Remember back in October of 2013 when the game originally launched? Back then, video games had integrity. Back then, it all meant something. Oh, the waste.
Ich muss sagen, ich erinnere mich an den Tag, wo es rauskam, ja. Aber ich muss ganz ehrlich gestehen, ich habe gefühlt alles von das Spiel vergessen, warum auch immer. Also nicht alles, aber viel. Ach cool, guck mal, hier ist Steam. Haben die schön gemacht, muss ich ehrlich gestehen. Ey, haben die cool gemacht? Mir gefällt solche Sachen. Solche Sachen gefallen mir echt gut. Ah, wieder Steam. Good times. Aber ich glaube, ich habe auf dem ersten Teil, glaube ich, nicht alles gesehen. Cool. Das sind die Errungenschaften gewesen. Aber ich glaube, wann mal? Von Stanley 1, ne? Ja. Genau. Cool, das haben wir ja in der letzten Folge gesehen. Oh. Kann ich ja, hab ich ja geklickt? Nee, ne? Kann nichts machen, schade. Hey, ich möchte auf der... Was? Ich würde sagen, wir genießen einfach die Musik, ne?
C'est là, dans la mémoriso, où je me remémore les jours où je t'ai rencontré, mon amour. Mais ici, c'est aussi où je me souviens de la sortie de The Stanley Parable.
Schick, schick. Also die Musik jetzt. Bessere Grafik gibt's auf jeden Fall.
C'était en 2013, un très bon jeu vidéo. 2 mois après les journaux, mon amour. Rien de plus nostalgique que les prix du public qui reçut à l'IGF, mon amour. Ici, dans la memory zone, se rassemblent les 2 fantômes de The Stanley Parable. Nous sommes dans la memory zone, et me voilà pris le coup. Ne me force pas à choisir mon amour. J'aimais la version d'hier. La nouvelle fera-t-elle l'affaire? Plus j'y pense, plus je te perds. Voilà pourquoi maintenant j'erre dans la mémorisation.
Schick, schick. Hat sich gut angehört, finde ich. Wir warten mal kurz, ob vielleicht noch irgendwas kommt. Schade.
And over here is where I keep reviews of the Stanley Parable. Like this stunning triumph of games journalism. 10 out of 10 from Destructoid.com. James Stephanie Sterling writes, and I quote, "Where so many games that aspire to be more than games end up less than any form of art, Stanley Parable strives and then succeeds to be every game ever created." Did you hear that, Stanley? Every game ever created. That's how grand and all-encompassing the original Stanley Parable was. It was literally every game ever created. It was Skyrim, it was Persona 3, it was all of them, and now it's nothing. It's no games at all. It isn't even the Stanley Parable anymore. It's just a husk now. A lifeless husk with an hour of new elevator content.
Wer hat das erfasst? Was sagte sie? Was sagte er? Namen auch nur hier? Nö. Muss ich mir mal angucken. Weil der ist nicht auf Steam, der ist eine andere Seite. Das Symbol kenne ich gar nicht. Mich würde interessieren, ob es dies wirklich gibt. Um ehrlich zu sein. Das hier oben kommt mir nicht bekannt vor, muss ich sagen. Oder können wir auch jetzt wieder runter? Können wir hier runter? Ne, können wir nicht. Vergesst, was ich gesagt habe. Also bis jetzt noch nicht. Vielleicht später irgendwann. Person of the Year.
Here's another moving passage, this time from GameSpot.com.
GameSpot?
The Stanley Parable is both a richly stimulating commentary on the nature of choice in games and one that offers some of the most enjoyable, surprising, and rewarding choices I've ever been confronted with in a game. 9 out of 10. Don't you get it, Stanley? The game was perfect. It didn't need anything else. It didn't need new content. It just needed to be left alone, to spend the rest of time collecting dust in the hallowed hall of beloved video game memories.
Also ich liebe ja, also ich bin zum Beispiel auch ein großer Fan von SDP, wer die Band nicht kennt, die meisten kennen die Band eigentlich gar nicht, die kennen eigentlich nur die Lieder von den Leuten, zum Beispiel Scheiße, mir liegt eine Leiche, oder Nacht von Freitag auf Montag, das sind zum Beispiel die Sänger von diesen Liedern, und die nehmen sie auch selber gar nicht ernst, oder selber nicht zu ernst und machen Witze über sich selber, über andere, genau wie das Game hier, und ich liebe sowas. Ich weiß nicht warum, ich liebe und feiere sowas. Wenn man sich selber nicht zu ernst nimmt und auch selber über sich selbst quasi lustig machen kann, finde ich richtig geil. Und das sind Leute, die mir immer sofort sympathisch sind, aus welchen Gründen auch immer, keine Ahnung. Wenn die nicht über andere Leute lachen, sie auch über sich selber lachen, finde ich gut. Soll ich denn... Da kommen wir doch irgendwie rein, oder? Was ist denn jetzt mein Ziel hier? So. Die ist sogar vorhin einmal zugegangen, oder? Kommen wir jetzt vielleicht da unten rein? Mal kurz gucken. Was?
These were simpler times, Stanley. But I wouldn't give to go back, to have it all over again.
Oh, ganz ehrlich. Ja. Dito. Auch wenn ich da gerade erst seit 1 Jahr aus der Schule draußen bin, aber ja, Dito.
Wait, hang on. I don't recall this part of the memory zone before. What's this? What's down here?
Ich weiß es nicht. Noch nicht, weil wenn ich zurücklaufe. Nix, okay.
Oh no. Oh God, no. Stanley, it's a collection of reviews from Steam, the online video game distributor.
Was?
I haven't looked at these in years. I can't even imagine what's been collecting down here. Surely these reviews were glowing as well, weren't they?
Ich weiß nicht. Steam Reviews. Okay, da kommen unsere Bewertungen hin. Verstehe, okay. Ja, das gibt Sinn.
Honestly, I could not be bothered to play this game to full completion. The narrator is obnoxious and unfunny.
Was?
With his humor and dialogue proving to be more irritating than entertaining.
Was?
Unfunny?
Nein, finde ich nicht.
I'm trying to be
Was?
funny. I'm trying to make a serious work of art. I suppose I could write up a handful of gags to insert into the Stanley
Jetzt habe ich den Namen nicht
Parable,
gemerkt. Wollte gerade
but
den
the
Namen
game is
gucken.
already such a densely layered web of profound philosophical insights that I can't even imagine where I'd have the room to stick them.
Moment eben, Leute. Ich unterbreche mal kurz die Aufnahme. Ich wollte den Namen nochmal kurz nachgucken. Dann gucken wir gleich mal zusammen nach. Moment eben. Ja, Leute, bin ich wieder. Ich muss ganz ehrlich gestehen, ich habe die Person so nicht gefunden auf der Schnelle. Aber ich habe mir jetzt mal diese Steam-Bewertungen angeguckt. Nur die negativen. Und manche... Da packe ich mir echt an den Kopf. Zum Beispiel, wo jetzt hier steht, Moment. Negativ bewertet. Kann ich denn hier... Ich kann das Spiel nicht empfehlen. Es ist langweilig, für 12 Euro ist es viel zu kurz. Es frustriert, es wiederholt sich immer und immer und immer und immer wieder. Das ist das Spielprinzip. klang zwar ganz interessant, aber wird nach 3 bis 4 unterschiedlichen Durchläufen langweilig. Ist das Geld leider nicht wert. Was ein Krampf. Verstehe ich ehrlich gesagt nicht so wirklich, weil, ja klar, jeder hat anderen Humor, gar keine Frage. Aber trotzdem, krass. Vor allem manche Reviews, wo ich denke, Leute. Was kriegt von mir? Wegen unlauterem Wettbewerb. Es sind keine anderen Sprachpakete vorhanden. Eine klare Nicht-Empfehlung. Was? Okay, die Person finde ich gerade leider nicht. Schade. Aber, naja. Kommt mir fast vor, wie hier auf YouTube manche Kommentare einfach keinen Sinn, keinen Verstand haben. Schade. Na, positive kann man nicht sehen, nur negative. Also, wenn man, weiß nicht. Ich habe das Gefühl, die meisten gehen auch zum Lachen im Keller oder so. Ich finde den Erzähler ganz lustig. Und auch nicht langweilig, muss ich ehrlich gestehen. Okay, die kann man leider nicht lesen.
Okay, let's see what this one says. While the idea for the game is good, for someone who prefers non-linear games, this preachiness gets annoying fast. Preachy? Stanley? I'm not preachy, am I? You can tell me if I'm preachy. Honestly, you can. Oh, goodness. This is actually quite shocking for me. Well, to be honest, I had always thought of the game's dialogue as being rather terse to begin with. You can't know how much fluff I cut from the game to get it to feel as light and airy as it... Well, I always thought it did. But maybe it wasn't. Oh dear. What an awful memory to have to hold on to. These black marks on my otherwise unimpeachable track record. I feel like a failure. Like I let these people down. Perhaps the Stanley Parable isn't quite as sterling as I always remembered.
Oh. Ich glaube, die Person gibt's sogar. Ich glaube, ich habe die gerade gefunden, glaube ich. Glaube ich. Ich guck mal kurz drauf. Warte mal. Kann ich seine Spiele sehen? Oh, Rezensionen sehen. Das reicht schon. Tatsache, die Rezension gibt's wirklich. Krass, da würde ich es interessieren, weil es haben unglaublich 154 Personen fanden diese Rezension lustig und 66 Personen fanden diese Rezension hilfreich. Mich würde es mal interessieren, ob das alles durch das neue Spiel kommt, weil die auch gesucht haben oder nicht. Da würde ich mal interessieren. Man kann leider keinen Kommentar drunter schreiben. Aber die Person gibt es auf jeden Fall wirklich. Krass. Obwohl nur das Schaf sich ein deutscher Name anhört, stand bei ihnen als Landsmann Brasilianer. Sag mal so? Weiß ich gar nicht. Auf jeden Fall aus Brasilien.
What's this one got to say? You constantly have to stop doing anything so the narrator can catch up with his long-winded explanations of what's happening. I wish there was a skip button. A skip button? Well, yes. Yes, I think we can do that. If I'm truly too preachy, then maybe letting you skip ahead for just a moment, surely it couldn't hurt. Not if it means we can strike these negative reviews from the record. Only positive reviews of the Stanley Parable. That's my motto today, and it's always been my motto. I'd do anything for the customer, Stanley. Yes, a skip button we shall have.
Also, ich wünsche mir, die Leute, die alles negativ bewertet haben und gerade hier mit drin sind, dass sie sich da angucken. Das Spiel angucken, nicht, wie wahrscheinlich meistens keine Deutschen gucken sich nicht an. Ich meine jetzt das Spiel spielen selber.
And here it is. Go ahead and give it a shot. I'll pop you forward in time so that the second my incessant droning starts to bore you, with just the push of a button, you'll have zipped right past it. It's what the players have been asking for, and I'm very proud to have delivered. No more listening to me rambling on and on and on. No, 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 no. The Stanley Parable is a game for the people. And if the people want silence, then by goodness, that's what they're going to get. Well, don't sit around waiting for me to shut up. Go ahead and make me shut up. Here, we'll pretend that I've just begun an interminable monologue, and it goes something like this. The story, and the choices, or what have you, and therefore, by becoming it is, so on and so forth, until inevitably, we all until the end of time, at which time everything all at once, so, now you see, bla 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 bla.
Das meinte ich mir auch zum Beispiel mit nicht selber ernst zu nehmen, dass die selber auch ihre negativen Bewertungen mit reinnehmen, finde ich stark, wirklich.
The deduction therefore becomes impossible to manufacture. It went on for nearly 10,000 years, until just yesterday, here and there, forward and back, and never a moment before lunchtime. It can't be. It's the only thing there is. How many billions left until so much more than forever ago? Which is why I say, the story, and the choices, or what have you, and therefore, by becoming it is, so on and so forth, until inevitably, we all until the end of time, at which time everything all at once, so, now you see, blah 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 blah. We've eaten too much and it can't be just yet, no, until 245. That the logic of elimination working backwards, the deduction therefore becomes impossible to manufacture. It went on for nearly 10,000 years. Until just yesterday, here and there, forward and back, and never a moment before lunchtime. It can't be. It's the only thing there is. How many billions left until so much more than forever ago? Which is why I say, the story, and the choices, or what have you, and therefore, by becoming it is, so on and so forth, until inevitably, we all until the end of time, at which time everything all at once, so, now you see, blah 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 blah. We've eaten too much and it can't be just yet, no, until 245. That the logic of elimination working backwards, the deduction therefore becomes impossible to manufacture. It went on for nearly 10,000 years, until just yesterday, here and there, forward and back, and never a moment before lunchtime. It can't be. It's the only thing there is. How many billions left until so much more than forever ago? Which is why I say, the story, and the choices, or what have you, and therefore, by becoming it is, so on and so forth, until inevitably, we all until the end of time, at which time everything all at once, so, now you see, blah 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 blah. We've eaten too much and it can't be just yet, no, until 245. That the logic of elimination working backwards, the deduction therefore becomes impossible to manufacture. It went on for nearly 10,000 years, until just yesterday, here and there, forward and back, and never a moment before lunchtime. It can't be. It's the only thing there is. How many billions left until so much more than forever ago? Which is why I say, the story, and the choices, or what have you, and therefore, by becoming it is, so on and so forth, until inevitably, we all until the end of time, at which time everything all at once, so, now you see, blah 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 blah. We've eaten too much and it can't be just yet, no, until 245. That the logic of elimination working backwards, the deduction therefore becomes impossible to manufacture. It went on for nearly 10,000 years, until just yesterday, here and there, forward and back, and never a moment before lunchtime. It can't be. It's the only thing there is. How many billions left until so much more than forever ago? Which is why I say, the story, and the choices, or what have you, and therefore, by becoming it is, so on and so forth, until inevitably, we all until the end of time, at which time everything all at once, so, now you see, blah 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 blah. We've eaten too much and it can't be just yet, no, until 245. That the logic of elimination working backwards, the deduction therefore becomes impossible to manufacture. It went on for nearly 10,000 years, until until just yesterday, here and there, forward and back, and never a moment before lunchtime.
Okay, ich baue die Ursprünge für euch mal. Ich habe jetzt über 5 Minuten gewartet, gefühlt 5 Minuten, wie ich sagen, genau auf die Uhr geguckt. Und es passiert leider nichts anderes.
Which is why I say, the story and the choices
Kann ich hier was machen? Nee, ne?
and therefore, by becoming it is, so on and so forth, until inevitably,
okay,
we
ich muss
all
drauf
until
drücken.
the
Ich drück
end
drauf.
of time.
Was?
Oh, you're back, you see. You were only frozen in time for a few minutes, but it was plenty of time for me to deliver a long, rambling monologue full of unnecessary verbal flourishes and lengthy ruminations on the nature of choice in video games. Of course, I happen to believe it was perhaps one of my more profound such ruminations. Not that, of course, you need a description of it, but if I had to describe it, I'd say it was perhaps less of a rumination and more of a treatise. Or maybe a manifesto. Look, I'll outline it for you very briefly and you can tell me what you think. Okay, so my theory is that any choice you've ever made is simply a series of choices made by the person who you are, or were, or will be at the time of having made said choice. That is to say, if by articulating a choice you've already made, you bring that choice into being, then by making no choice and saying nothing, are you not simply erecting in the sanctuary of time a monument to every person you've ever been, making every choice to which you've ever given your... Well there, sport. You really did catch me rambling on a bit, didn't you? But that's the power of the button. The minute I start to go off on a thoughtless display of self-absorption, it's right at your fingertips to go poof, and it's all over. Okay, welcome back, Stanley. Now, I should say that the amount of time the button has been skipping through is becoming longer and longer. That last one was, well, I want to say maybe 30, 45 minutes?
Ciao.
Stanley, please don't push the button again. It's been 12 hours. You've just been frozen there. I don't know why the skips are getting longer, but they're really...
Ciao.
Oh, Stanley, you're back. You're back. Oh, my goodness. I have someone to talk to again. Stanley, I think it's been a week.
Eine Woche?
Or 2 weeks. I've been sitting here all that time. Just sitting here. Oh, hello. It's you. You're here again. Welcome. I have had time to think about you and about us and about everything we've been through. I've had so much time. I stopped keeping track after a year. Have you ever sat down
Ciao. Erzähler? Hallo? Erzähler? Bist du noch da? Hallo? Was passiert hier? Vor allem, der Rauchmelder, warum? Hallo? Komm zurück, bitte.
But they didn't understand the game was never meant to be funny. It was meant to have a point. It was meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed their teeth and said, entertain us. It wasn't enough. They had to leave a pathetic little thumbs-down review and make all of their pitiful demands. But then, he's talking too much, they said. First, he didn't entertain us, now he won't shut up. It's the inconsistency, it's the lack of accountability. It's the unwillingness to examine with an uncompromising heart the words that they are speaking into the world. As though there were no consequences for a lack of cohesion in one's assessment of others. But of course, absolutely anyone can leave a review. So here's what we get. We get these demands that seek everything and are accountable to nothing. We get a world where someone will say, oh, there should be a skip button. You should be able to freeze Stanley in place while the narrator sits there forever and ever. We want all of this in the new Stanley Parable. We demand it. And then, because it was said, because it was spoken, now it simply has to happen. The most immediate desires, every single thing demanded by every person at every moment in time.
Ciao.
If some...
Ihr redet wieder nicht?
The end is never the end, 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 is never the end.
Ich glaube, ich verstehe gerade ein paar Steam-Bewertungen, wo die Leute immer nur das geschrieben haben. Ich verstehe es jetzt, warum.
The end is never the end, 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 is never the end.
Mal gucken, wie lange der hinkriegt. Oh, wir kriegen zu langsam Wasserschein.
Is never the end, 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 is never the end.
Ende. Ich habe das Gefühl, wir ersaufen irgendwann ab. Weißt du, alles schön und gut, aber warum ist die Tür weg? Verstehe ich noch nicht so ganz. Weiter bitte? Weiter! Weiter? Ich glaube, wir sterben hier einfach. Oh, Sonnenlicht. Wo bist du, mein Sonnenlicht? Ich vermisse dich. Und weiter? Das ist, glaube ich, suche dich? Ich weiß es nicht. Oh! Schön! Wir haben gleich einen Urwald drin. Nice. Hier wird also, ich bin Star, mich hier rausgedreht. Gut zu wissen. Was? Hat sich jetzt irgendwas geändert von vorhin? Ich glaube nicht. Oder? Doch, ich glaube wohl. Was? Geht's da jetzt nicht raus? Ich versuchen. Kann man hier nochmal irgendwie drücken? Oh, anscheinend klappt das nicht mehr. Ich hätte fast damit gerechnet, weil das Spiel beenden müssen. Ich dachte, wir kommen hier nie wieder raus, aber anscheinend kommen wir da jetzt raus. Ne, schade, ich kann nicht mal drücken. Wo kommt... Der Stuhl war vorher nicht hier, oder? Okay, es klappt nicht mehr. Na dann, gehen wir mal weiter. Was? Hier eine Sahara? Sind wir hier in der Sahara? Nein, hört sich falsch an. Entschuldigung. Entschuldigung allen Sahara da draußen. Ich glaube, ist egal, wo wir lang laufen, glaube ich. Glaube ich. Und der Erzähler ist jetzt einfach tot? Oder wie was? Was? Jetzt alles...
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. Oh, please. Are you really just doing this for the achievement? click a door 5 times. Is that all that you think an achievement is worth? No, no, no.
Fängt er echt von
I
vorne
can't
an?
just give these merits away for such little effort.
Moment
A
mal.
measly 5 clicks.
Ganz von
Now,
vorne kann er aber
suppose you
nicht.
were to click the door 20 times. I would say that's the kind of effort that warrants recognition.
Wir vergessen die PCs über auszumachen. Moment mal eben. Moment mal. Man konnte doch irgendwo hier draufsteigen, irgendwie. Weiß nicht, wie ich das gemacht habe, aber irgendwie konnte man hier draufsteigen. Ach so. Kurios, sehr kurios. Das hier ist neu. Ich glaube, wenn ich da lang laufe, ist alles gleich, glaube ich.
Oh, good. You notice my
Nein.
sign. Yes, I have something very exciting to show you.
Kann ich nicht hier lang? Nö, anscheinend nicht. Dann zeig mir mal deine spannenden Sachen. Kann ich wieder... New Content, nur rückwärts geschrieben.
You see, Stanley, I've been reflecting on the Stanley Parable and about how roundly disappointing this ultra-deluxe version has turned out to be. The original Stanley Parable was a landmark, and any new content for it should live up to that legacy. So forget this ultra-deluxe nonsense. I say we take it one step even further. Which is why I'm very proud to announce for the first time ever, the Stanley Parable 2. Yes, you see, isn't this far superior to a measly re-release with a few minor additions? Think of all the new territory we'll cover with a fully fledged sequel. An entirely new experience, built from the ground up. Why, there are so many possibilities. It could go in so many different directions. This is what fans have truly been asking for. Calling it the Stanley Parable 2 is just so much catchier than Ultra Deluxe, don't you think? Ultra Deluxe? What does it even mean? But the Stanley Parable 2, now that's an artistic statement right there. It's future-oriented. It screams progress and innovation and long-term franchising potential.
Aber stimmt eigentlich. Warum habe ich eigentlich gefragt, warum das Stanley Parable nicht 2 heißt, sondern Ultra Deluxe oder so? Davon mal abgesehen. Oh, danke, Tür. versuche immer alles anzuklicken. Aber irgendwie bringt mir das rein gar nichts. Das hier die Entwickler-Lounge, was?
Now, to be clear, I haven't quite nailed down what exactly the Stanley Parable 2 is going to be, but let's take a look at some of the features I've been developing for it. I figure that if I can loosely organize a handful of interesting concepts, that surely the game will sort of naturally spring up around them. It'll all work itself out. Game development is much more of a fuzzy magic than anything scientific or logical, really.
New Features. Oh, jetzt kann ich da? Nein, kann ich nicht.
Here we are. Go on, try out some of the new features.
Was? Ich weiß nicht, wo ich jetzt langlaufen soll. So viele Wege für mich.
For the Stanley Parable 2, I asked myself, what do players really want? And of course, the first and most obvious answer is that they want to be individually recognized and validated as people. So with that in mind, my first addition to the game is this button which speaks the name of the person playing the game. Isn't that wonderful?
Kann man hier schon drauf drücken? Nee, ne?
Sorry, I should have clarified. Right now, the button only says the name Jim. But of course, in the final game, this button will say your name, whatever name that is. Here,
Dennis.
let's have you role-play as Jim to really simulate the full experience of this feature. Just play along. I promise you'll love it. Okay, here we go. Let's take a deep breath, clear your mind, forget whoever you are, and simply become a person named Jim. I want you to imagine yourself living as Jim, sleeping and waking as Jim, falling in love and being heartbroken as Jim, seizing all of the world's possibilities as Jim, and as Jim,
Der Ding ist
watching your
ausatmen.
dreams crumble into dust. Do you feel it deeply? Are you really, truly Jim right now?
Nein.
If so, then please step forward and press the button.
Kann ich einfach wieder gehen? Gucken, ob er was sagt. Oh, ich kann hier links vorgehen anscheinend. Nee, okay. Dann drücken wir den Button.
Yes! You see? What a thrill! What a rush! That was you! The button described you. Do it again. Do it again.
Jim.
Ooh, it hits even harder the
Was?
second time.
Er meint, du
If
bist
this were
unlustig.
the
Halt's
only
Maul.
new feature in the Stanley Parable 2, it would still be worth the money. Let's take a break from the Jim button. I'm too emotionally drained from all of this personal validation.
Jim.
Whoa there, cowboy. Sometimes a person can be too much Jim. I'm putting the Jim button away.
Was?
Otherwise, soon you'll start to lose all sense of who you actually are.
Jim.
Was? Ich nehme den Jim-Knopf weg.
I suppose I could allow only people named Jim to play the Stanley Parable too.
Ja.
That would actually save me the work of finishing this feature.
Heißt, ich stelle mir vor, Leute, die wirklich Jim heißen, das Spiel spielen, auf diesen Jim-Knopf drücken und denken, wow. Krass. Woher wissen wir, wie ich heiße?
An epilogue would be fun, wouldn't it, Stanley? Yes, it will go at the end of the, well, we'll figure that out later.
Einstellungen, Weltmeister, unendliches Loch. Gratis Erfolg, da will ich hin. Ich möchte gratis Erfolg.
Now here's something special. You remember that broken test achievement that got left in the game on accident? Well, I'm developing a technology to simply give you the achievement. Yes, you see, you'll come to this lever, and when you pull it, the achievement will be given to you. It's as simple as that.
Ist das den Erfolg, den ich nie verstanden habe in den Steam-Errungenschaften?
Okay, perhaps I should have clarified. This is technology that will exist. Right now, the achievement is still fully broken. I'm not a wizard, Stanley, but I guarantee it will be fixed in the sequel to at last satisfy the hordes of ravenous fans all over the world who have been uproariously demanding this feature. Gamers, we hear you, and I promise it will happen.
Kann ich hier sonst nichts machen? Da ist jetzt echt ein Achievement. Mann. Dreckspiel. Versuchen auch trotzdem nochmal, mir egal. Mann, Kacke. So.
What else? What other exhibits haven't we seen yet?
Ich glaube, ganz viele, glaube ich. Wo geht's zum Beispiel hier lang? Hier sind so viele Wege. Was? Please, no screenshot.
Okay, I'll be honest, I haven't yet decided on this one. I think that in the new version, the office could use a bit of decoration, like balloons. But I'm undecided on Get Well Someday and Happy 12th Birthday. Which would you go with?
12. Geburtstag? Eventuell? Ah! Den hier.
You know, sometimes when you solicit another person's opinion, it makes you realize that you knew which one you actually really wanted all along. Get Well Someday it is. Or actually, maybe I should have gone with... No, I've made my decision, we're moving on.
Nein, wir machen nicht weiter.
Come now, you've already made your choice. It's true that you chose badly, but we all have to move on from our mistakes.
Nein! Nein! Sehe ich nicht ein, Spiel. Nein. Nein. Nö. Schade, ich dachte, wenn ich jetzt länger hier drin bleibe, dann ändert seine Meinung auch, aber anscheinend nicht. Schade. Merch. Will ich haben, alles. Aber umsonst, bitte. So, Moment mal. Was haben wir hier noch nicht gemacht? Was zum... Ich da gerade echt dafür mein Handy. Sprungkreis? Wo geht's hier lang? Mal gucken.
Ah, collectibles. Now it's a real video game. In the Stanley Parable 2, you'll run around gathering up these miniature Stanley figurines. And what's truly innovative is that there will be no reward for collecting all of them. I don't want to stifle the intrinsic joy of watching a number go up. You simply collect all of them, and then you move the hell on with your unremarkable life.
Darf ich die jetzt ruhig einsammeln, oder? Eher weniger. Oh. Erster? Ja! 1 von 6. Danke, Spiel.
God, it really is the worst when you collect everything in a video game and then they give you a big fancy reward for it. Absolutely.
Jetzt möchte ich
tragic.
wirklich alle haben. Ausgang. Will ich aber nicht zum Ausgang. So, da war ich. Da war ich. Hier war ich noch nicht. Da schon, aber hier noch nicht.
Stanley, here's an idea that I'm truly fond of. It's never been done before in a video game. This is in fact a hole that you can fall down forever. That's right. Infinite falling. You can fall until the end of time if you like. A stunning leap forward for video games as a medium.
Wollen wir was gucken eben? Weißt du nicht, wie ich zurücklaufe? Was sagt er was anderes? Ach, guck mal, da geht's auch noch hoch, ne? Oder auch nicht? Nö. Ein Loch, wo ich ewig falle. Bin mal gespannt. Ciao.
You see, isn't it wonderful?
Yeah.
One of my more ingenious concoctions, if I do say so. Now then, since you've gotten to see the infinite hole, you can press the teleport button to pop back up to the top, and we can continue onward.
Nö, warum?
Now, I don't mean to be a bummer, but I do recommend you use the teleport button to go back to the
Nö.
top. Maybe do it on the sooner rather than later
Warum?
spectrum of
Geht das doch
things.
nicht? Ewig? Klatsch ich ihn auf den Boden und bin tot? Ich glaube schon.
Okay, Stanley. I don't know quite how to say this tactfully, but it's possible that I slightly exaggerated the infinite nature of the hole. Is it a very, very deep hole? To be certain it is. It's an extremely deep hole. I don't want anyone to say that it isn't an astonishingly deep hole.
Yeah.
It is. Is it infinite? Well, that sort of depends on your definition of infinity. From one perspective, the infinite is merely philosophical in nature. It's more of a... Okay, well, good for you. You found the bottom of the hole. You found me out, Stanley. I'm a liar and a cheat, and you're so clever.
Ja.
I think the issue here is just that you're unusually fascinated by falling. What normal person actually wants to fall infinitely? I figured the hole was as deep as anyone would actually need. Don't you put this on me. Maybe you're the problem. Look, things got a little heated there. I think we both said some things we didn't mean. Why don't we just put all this behind us and agree to just call the hole mostly infinite? If that works for you, then go ahead and press the teleport button to warp up to the top of the hole and we can move on. I'll just be up here when you're ready.
Ich warte hier unten. Also, ich frage mich, warum wir eigentlich nicht gestorben sind. Ich frage mich, wenn ich jetzt ein bisschen bleibe, ob noch was Neues kommt. Alter, wir nehmen gleich eine Stunde oder über eine Stunde schon auf. Ups. Ich glaube, ich mache erstmal einen Cut. Danke fürs Suchen zu hören. Bis bald. Ciao.